Thank you. We will now reconvene the Township of Gavin regular council meeting at 1 p.m. We are rising from closed session with a report. The report being the council appoint Guillermo Arvalo, Leslie Bilcock, Paul Black, and Lucy Danford to the Gavin Monaghan Accessibility Advisory Committee for the 2022-26 term of council, and the Councillor Byrne as the council representative to the Gavin Monaghan Accessibility Advisory Committee for the 2022-26 term of council. We move in a seconder for that. Moved by Councillor Byrne, second by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? That is approved. Next on the agenda, we have the minutes of the regular meeting held April 22nd. Any issues with those minutes? If not, we can take an approval for those minutes as presented. Moved by Councillor Natchoff, seconded by Councillor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Next, we have the minutes from community boards and committees. Gavin Monaghan Public Library Board meeting minutes from March 18th. Receiving those for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. Motor Valley Trails Advisory Committee meeting from March 24th. The minutes are approved as presented. Moved by Councillor Byrne, seconded by Councillor Natchoff. All in favor? That is approved. All right, on to the reports. Report CAO 2025-05, terms of reference for task force, Ms. Hurley.
Thank you. The report before you has three recommendations that council, the first recommendation is that council approve the terms of reference for the downtown park and the remaining Gavin Monaghan Community Center Lands Task Force, and that council appoint 2 members of council to the task force, and that council direct staff to recruit 3 additional members of the public to fulfill the required complement of the task force. The task force terms of reference are attached to the report, and that report breaks down everything from a mandate to the scope of the work, the compensation, and the meeting scheduling. So if you have any questions, I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurley. Any questions about the terms of reference for the task force? Seeing none. I had I had an expression of interest from Deputy Mayor Huntley to be appointed to the committee, and given the status and inclusion with regards to the recreation project, I would also like to serve on the committee. So those would be the 2 appointments that if everyone's appeased, we will appoint both myself and the deputy mayor to that task force as the council representative. So if no other questions, can I get a mover and a seconder for the 3 recommendations with regards to the task force and those appointments? Moved by Councillor Natchoff, seconded by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? That is approved. Moving on to report 10.2, for corporate services, telephone and internet voting in the 2026 election. Ms. Page.
Thank you, Mayor Graham. To yourself and the rest of council, before you is Corporate Services Report 2025-09, telephone and internet voting for the 2026 municipal election. As council is aware, the municipal and school board election will be held on October 26th of 2026. And as part of the preparation, staff is seeking direction as outlined in the Municipal Elections Act, Section 42, to allow for the alternative voting methods that we've used the last 3 elections, 2014, 2018, and 2022. Based on the data from our previous elections, the total costs, and the voter feedback that we've received, telephone and internet voting have proven to be effective alternative methods for voting that align with all the key considerations when preparing for a municipal election. The other considerations include improving accessibility, the convenience of voting processes, attempting to increase the voter participation, and ensuring the security and accuracy of the votes and reducing our carbon footprint. Staff do believe, as we continue to move through this process, that the better management and managing of the cost to run this will be to continue to move forward with the process that we have in place. The increased costs that we do foresee will be mostly pertaining to the postage rates, and then expanding to have additional voter help centers. We like to have one in each of the wards during our voting term. Staff would like to move forward, should council support the recommendations today, to do the collaborate RFP that we ran in the 2022 election to do the internet and telephone voting. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. And before council For your consideration are the recommendations. The council authorize the use of the telephone internet voting as the only means of casting a ballot for the 2026 municipal and school board election. And the council adopt bylaw 2025-25, being a bylaw to provide for the alternative voting methods for the 2026 municipal and school board election.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Questions with regards to council with regards to the report? Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair, I'd like to amend the motion, the recommendation, if we could please, to include in-person paper balloting at polling stations throughout the township. When I looked into this a little farther, I remember way back in the day, it was marketed as a lot of municipalities were going to this kind of concept. Turns out we were kind of the guinea pigs back then, but it has become somewhat more popular. I had difficulty trying to find out how many of the 444 units in Ontario actually use this method, but when the Supreme Court made a ruling on a similar type of situation back in the late 2000s, I think it was 2015, they stressed the importance of having the electorate have confidence in the voting system, regardless of what it was. And as of today, the Municipal Act doesn't even mention electronic voting, and that's probably going to change in the next foreseeable future, possibly. There are no rules right now for anything online. And because of that, I've taken the time and listened to probably a couple of hundred or more people in the township over the last couple of years on this job that have serious concerns of their own in regards to the way electronic balloting can be verified or can be abused, depending on. And I just like to see if we could incorporate both and then maybe monitor the outcomes. Voter participation didn't peak or didn't even spike when we did go to the electronic voting, even though the premise was that it was going to be much easier, much simpler, and much more accessible to everybody. What I'm finding when I sit and take time to listen to people that actually live in the township, they don't feel quite as good. So with the notion that the Supreme Court put an emphasis on keeping confidence levels high for the people that vote, I'd like to see this recommendation somehow worked into the situation.
Ms. Page, would you like to speak to the amendment?
Through Mayor Graham, to yourself and Councillor Byrne, should you want to make an amendment, you could seek that and put the motion on the floor. There are a couple of things I would caution you. As was circulated to council last year, they are proposing to include this because it is a new modern form of technology that has been proven to be successful in the last 2 years, and that is why they are lobbying to change the Municipal Act. I would say that we do know there is a way to do verification of your ballot. Everybody that votes, you get a secure code at the end of the election. They go on and they verify it. I would say I have heard alternative feedback than what you have heard, and I believe if people were very concerned with this, our council chambers would have had people at our podium with a concern. This is the third time, actually the fourth time we'll be running our election in the last 2 decades in this method. So I appreciate what you're saying, but that is not the feedback that staff have received.
Thanks, Ms. Page. Do we have, or are we able to track? Maybe we're not even able to, but we do offer the in-person, still electronic voting. Do we tabulate or keep a record of that form of participation? And maybe I'm not including the door-to-door assistance for various accessibility issues that we have, but do we have, or maybe we're not allowed to, I'm not sure, with regards to the Elections Act. Do we have a record or a close approximation as to how many people actually come in person? Yeah, to the kiosk or in person at the township office when we're holding an election.
Through you to you. So the answer is we have the kiosks, but the kiosks rotate. So because we go to Springville, because we go to to the Manor, and we go to Springdale and Country Manor, and then we go down to Millbrook Manor. The IP address rolls with that. So I can't tell you how many people have physically come in here, but I can tell you how many people access the kiosk IP address. I can get it for you. I don't have it on my fingers, but I would say it's about, I don't have it on my fingers. I'm sorry about that.
That's fine. No, if you can email that around to council afterwards, that would be great. Because it's always, I've been curious. My feedback has been similar to you. I've got so many people, especially whether from the Manor or otherwise, just so thankful for the support and help to bring them the electronic participation because they otherwise couldn't support. So I haven't had the same experience from the community asking for going back to paper ballots. So, but you know, everyone's entitled to their own experience. Councillor Nacho?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just a question, what safeguards are in place for if, since the vote is just a one-day vote and not a pre-election like we have, what if Wi-Fi goes down? What if Nexicom's not able to, services go down for the day? Is there anything backup wise so that we know that at least the public's aware that there's something in place?
Ms. Page?
Through yourself to Councillor Natchoff, there is, and that is what is a great option about internet and telephone voting. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2 weeks. So similar to what just happened at City of Kawartha Lakes, they had a complete ice storm. The entire community was shut down and they were still able to run their by-election through the internet and telephone voting because people could still vote from their homes. The City Hall ran off of generators. So it doesn't prohibit that. It removes those barriers actually.
Deputy Mayor?
Through you, Chair, to Ms. Page. I don't know if you have the numbers off the top of your head either, but what's the cost difference between a electronic voting and a paper voting? Like, is it double, 3 times, 4 times? Like, just general numbers, just for sake of argument.
Through you to Deputy Mayor Huntley. So I can give you approximate numbers that have been quoted from the Trent Lakes. They just went forward. And when they ran their election, they had 3,153 voters. 2,939 of them voted through telephone and internet voting. Only 214 of those people cast a paper ballot. To cast the paper ballot, it costs $34.04, where your traditional or where your internet and telephone ballot was $7.55.
Thank you, Ms. Page. So I think Councilor Byrne was asking for a consideration of an amendment to the recommendation. Councilor Byrne, given the conversation, I'm assuming you want that amendment voted on now, or would you like to speak to the amendment? Because we're still discussing the amendment, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, sure. Go ahead, Councilor Byrne.
Through the chair. So yes, I'm appreciative of some people are okay with this new system. That's fine. I get the same feedback too. But I know they don't do it at the federal election level because of the risk involved. And it's not so much doing the actual voting that's the plus or the minus. It's the fact that people lack the confidence to say after it's done that it hasn't been manipulated in any way, shape, or form, because there is no way of going back. And in the last week, they've already gone back to the paper ballots and been looking at ridings that were maybe within a few hundred votes, and things are changing. With the electronic format, we don't have that option at all. And I get the fact that there is a certain level of security, even though there's no actual official guidelines now by the provincial government or the federal government regarding this. The other thing that makes me curious, the costing for the last online has actually gone down somewhat from the prior election. But we as a township spend more every year. The county of Peterborough spends more every year on cybersecurity with the threats that we're dealing with at our levels. And yet the costs for this online stuff aren't seeing that same increase, which makes me wonder why. But no, to the point, I would love to see if the amendment, I didn't know if the amendment had to be voted on today or just move forward to us at the next meeting. So I don't know how that works, but I'd like to see if it could.
It would need to be voted on in order to be carried, right? So, yeah, so I'm trying to think of what the recommendation, if it's a third recommendation or if it's one of an adjustment to the two. So just give me a second, just while I read these. So I think it would be a third recommendation rather than an amendment to one of the two based on how I read them. Is that correct, Ms. Page? You guide us. This is your area of expertise. You'll take a minute. There's no rush. I mean, realistically, it's kind of got to be amendment to recommendation 1. So then maybe the recommendation that I could see, I'm just trying to encompass what Councilor Burns are requesting here. So it would be the council authorize the use of these votings and that staff report back for considerations about the incorporation of some in-person paper ballot as a tertiary option. Is that so Councilor Burns says that's okay. Is that within the bureaucracy, does that still work? Or is that worth that would be the amendment that we would vote on the amendment?
Through Mayor Graham, to yourself and the rest of council, number 2 would no longer be applicable because that bylaw would need to be amended should council decide this. So I think let's vote. Okay,
So there's an amendment on the floor. So Deputy Mayor Huntley would like to speak to the amendment.
Through you, Chair, then recommendation number 1 wouldn't be valid either, right? Because you've,
By my reading, and I think Council Byrne gave me the green light on that, that council authorized the use of telephone and internet voting, but rather than as the only mean, and that staff report back about the opportunity or potential of in-person paper ballot as a tertiary form of voting at a later date. And that's where we're at. Until we get through that, then we don't know what's happening. So that's right. Okay, is there a seconder for that amendment? Okay, now Councillor Edgerton has asked for a recorded vote, so we should probably do a recorded vote on this too, because it's a part of it. Ms. Page?
that's right. We'll do through you, Mayor Graham, to the self and rest of council. We will do a recorded vote on the amendment. The amendment doesn't sit. Then we'll go back to the original motion. And then should Councillor Edgerton want a recorded vote on the final motion, then we'll do a recorded vote on the final motion. Councillor Byrne,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Huntley,
no.
Councillor Natchoff,
No.
Councillor Edgerton,
Yeah.
Mayor Graham,
No. That vote, the amendment on the vote on the amendment fails. So now we're back to the recommendations in the report as presented. Any other questions with regards to the merit of the report, or we can do a further vote? Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Through you, Chair, just from my own knowledge to the clerk, we're also conducting the school board elections at the same time. Does the school board refund us or pay us at all for that? I really don't recall. I'm just curious.
So the way the school board, through you, Mayor Graham to Deputy Mayor Huntley, the way the school board election runs is basically the school board makes a determination based on population who runs it. So it's us and Selwyn. So there isn't a compensation. It's just part of the joy of being the municipality that, yes.
Very good. Seeing no other hands, so with the 2 recommendations in the report would stand, so I think we should do a recorded vote. Can we do one recorded vote on both, or would you like to do recorded votes on each? Does it matter?
Through Mayor Graham, I propose that the motion sits together unless you want it broken out. I just need a mover and a seconder for the new motion. That's okay.
My mistake. Recommendations 1 and 2, moved by Councillor Natchoff, seconded by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? Oh, sorry, we're doing a
That's it. No problem. No problem. Mayor Graham,
yes.
Councillor Edgerton, Councillor Natchoff,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Byrne.
No.
That is carried. Good discussion, council. Moving on to report 10.3, the Integrity Commissioner Services Annual Report for 2024. Ms. Page, this is just sort of a formality with regards to a summary of the report. I don't think, does anyone have any questions about this report? It's just an end of year sort of housekeeping item. So the recommendation is just that we're receiving it for information. So if no one has any questions, we can vote to receive it for information. Moved by Councillor Edgerton, seconded by Councillor Byrne. All in favor? That is approved. Council committee verbal reports. I think Mr. Edgerton has one, so I'll start with him.
Yeah, on April the 30th, we had a meeting with Mr. Hack to discuss stuff up at the old school, and there'll be a report coming to council later.
So that's just a discussion about the ICIP renovation and the works that are going on. Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you. Councillor Natchoff.
Thank you through you, Chair. The Millbrook Valley Trails in our last meeting just kind of went over everything that we kind of do for the month. And then this past Saturday, we had our volunteer work day, which was great. We had over 50 plus volunteers from different local groups. I would like to thank them for their hard work. The trails were all cleaned up. And in addition, we'd like to thank Chris and the Parks and Rec staff for their ongoing assistance with helping us keep the trails in good order.
Thanks, Councillor Natchez. Deputy Mayor Huntley.
Thank you, Chair, through you. I just wanted to bring attention to the fact that we had a very, very successful Earth Day event sponsored by the Sustainability Committee, and a big shout out specifically to Leslie Bilcox for her hard work in establishing that, as well as the staff of Bridget, Chris, and Kyle that were huge contributors to that. I mean, part of the success of this event was they had over 400 trees ordered, with another 200 that came in after the fact, as well as, another 100 rain barrels were purchased by residents, which is phenomenal. Like it's a major step forward, and kind of that little bit of help that people can do as an individuals. There were many groups that were there. We had cleanup Peterborough. We had a really nifty repair cafe, which was designed to have people bring in things that we otherwise would have probably thrown out, and had, tinkerers fix and repair it. So that was really well received. As well as Greenup was there. The Canadian EV Society had representatives there. So there was a bunch of EV vehicles out there for people to check out with no really affiliation with any one brand or not. As well as for our grandchildren, Orca was there. Farms at Work, Kawartha Land Trust, and other residents that were knowledgeable in native trees and native fauna flora. So lots of great conversations, lots of great people, and actually super well attended. So again, big shout out to staff and to Leslie and the Sustainability Committee for all their efforts and work that went into that.
Councillor Byrne.
Through the chair, on behalf of Kawartha Lakes Conservation Authority, after the storm damage there a little while ago, they're struggling to get their facilities and their properties back up to peak condition. And the recommendation would probably be, if you're going to try to participate in anything, to call ahead and make sure the facilities and the sites are accessible. Some things have to be shut down for safety reasons, and there's a struggle to cope with everything. So it's still going to be a little bit of a duration, just so people are aware. They're trying.
No, thanks for that update. Obviously, hopefully with some of the windstorms that we've had since then, most of the deadfalls and things are out of the way now and being cleaned up, but that's a good update. Thank you, Councillor Byrne. The only other update I have with regards to committees is we did the library board last one, but I did want to let council know that I did reach out to MP Schmale and congratulate him on his re-election again. So it's nice to keep working with Jamie, and familiar face and advocate for the community. And we wish him all the best. And I think a lot of us are happy to have election talk out of the way for a while before 2026. And Ms. Page couldn't help herself but bring that report forward today. So now that that's behind us, we're looking forward to move forward. Can I have a mover and a seconder to receive those council and committee updates? Moved by Councillor Byrne, seconded by Councillor Natchez. All in favor? That is approved. There is no general business, no correspondence for information, no correspondence for action. The bylaws, the bylaw number 2025-25 being a bylaw to authorize the use of alternative voting methods for the 2026 municipal election, be read a first, second, third time and passed this 5th day of May, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. And get a mover for the bylaw. Moved by Councillor Natchez and seconded by Deputy Mayor Huntley. All in favor? That is approved. There is no unfinished business. Any notices of motion? Seeing none. The confirming bylaw, that bylaw number 2025-26, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meeting held May 5th, 2025, be read a first, second, third time and passed this 5th day of May, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Moved by Councillor Natchez, seconded by Councillor Edgerton. All in favor? That is approved. Lastly, a motion for adjournment of today's meeting. Moved by Deputy Mayor Huntley, seconded by Councillor Edgerton. All in favor? That is approved. A list of upcoming events. The regular council meeting or the next regular council meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 20th, 1 p.m. after the long weekend. The subsequent Cavan Monaghan Public Library Board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, May 20th at 7 p.m. And that one is being held at the Bruce Johnson Library. I know there was some confusion about that one last time. So just reiterating that for all my library board members. The Ojai Trails next meeting is May 26th at 4 p.m. And the subsequent regular council meeting is Monday, June 2nd at 1 p.m. Thank you everyone for joining us today and have a safe week. Cheers.